Hey everyone, this is the Love of Cinema podcast. We like to talk movies. If you like to talk movies too, you come to the right place.
Or we have to go on night for tomorrow morning shows and sleep there only. We used to take all the bedsheet and the pillows. We used to sleep there, take the ticket for matinee show, not morning show. Because the queue was so big, half of the queue is to go to morning show. The second half we has to go for matinee.
I was with my son when I met Ramesh Sippy, and I told him that it's a testament to the cross-generational appeal of your film that my dad is in love with it, I am in love with it, and my son is in love with it.
For example, if you say in Kalia, when he says that line, "Jahan hum khade hote hain," line wahi se shuru hoti hai. You will not hear the entire line. Because the moment he says "Jahan hum khade hote hain," the whistles have started. Yeah.
Hey guys, this is Himanshu, and this is the Love of Cinema podcast. Imagine this. It is the early 80s. You're at a single screen theater for a packed matinee show. The reels start to roll. And before you know it, it's the scene where Allah Rakha the eagle snatches the gun from Suresh Oberoi's hand, takes flight, and drops it in Amitabh Bachchan's hand. Before landing on his forearm, we cut to Bachchan jumping onto a train top and walking across like the king of his domain, before leaping one more time, landing on the railway platform. That's right. What I just asked you to imagine is watching the actor's widely popular introductory scene in Manmohan Desai's 1983 film Coolie. On this episode, which I had a lot of fun putting together, joining us are cinephiles and Bachchan fans who don't have to imagine that. Why? Because they were there in 1983, watching that scene and that film on the big screen and have vivid memories of watching Coolie and other Bachchan films of the 70s and 80s, experiencing peak Bachchan hysteria firsthand. And they'll be sharing those memories with us. But before that, if you're a first-time listener, do check out prior episodes of the podcast. You can find all episodes on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your pods. If you enjoy organic conversations centered on Indian cinema, Love of Cinema podcast was created for people just like you. So do consider subscribing. For an independent podcast like this one, reviews make a big difference. So please do take a minute and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. And do spread the word about this podcast on Twitter, Facebook, or Insta. That would be much appreciated. Coming back to today's episode. A few months ago, I tweeted out saying, I would love to talk to you if you had the good fortune of living through peak Bachchan mania and watching his films on the big screen back in the day. Like almost every fan of Hindi cinema, I love Amitabh Bachchan, and I had always wondered what the thrill would have been like to catch his movies on the big screen at the height of his stardom and during his early days. My first Bachchan film in the theaters was Lal Badshah. So for someone like me, who grew up in the 90s, and others like me, we can only imagine what it would have been like to watch Sholay or Muqaddar Ka Sikandar or Kalia in theaters. On this episode, I chatted with Sandeep Loyalka and Mohammad Tanveer, who have watched every movie of Bachchan since Janjeer on the big screen. Sandeep spoke fondly of his memories of watching Sholay multiple times, bumping into Ramesh Sippy one fine day, and how he waited for the daily newspaper updates on Bachchan's health in the days following the actor's accident on the sets of Coolie. Mohammad Tanveer recalled camping outside the theaters overnight for tickets when the ticket price was little over 2 rupees. How Bachchan felt different than most big actors of the time, and how he and his friends used to frequent the barber shop just to check out Screen, a film-centric newspaper that used to announce the release dates and Muhurat dates, etc. I also chatted with Sandeep Padhi, who shared a very different experience when it came to watching Bachchan's films. He grew up in a small town in Odisha in the early 90s, and many Bachchan films arrived there for the first time much later after their releases. So he got to watch Kalia, Coolie on the big screen in the early 90s, growing up in his hometown. He too had a lot of interesting stories to share. A quick heads up about the audio fidelity of the first conversation which we will be hearing. Sandeep was outside and had to chat over the phone, so the internet connectivity was a bit sketchy at times. But there is no part which is not clearly audible. Also, the stories he has to tell will completely make you overlook the momentary lapses in audio quality. I can guarantee you that. With that, Sandeep Loyalka, Mohammad Tanveer, and Sandeep Padhi on Watching Bachchan on the Big Screen back in the day. Here goes. First up, it's Sandeep Loyalka.
I've grown up watching Hindi films all my life. I think the fascination began because my dad was a huge fan,
Okay.
and he used to not only take me to watch films, but he used to always buy the new music that used to come out in the market, the new records, and get them home, and which is why I grew so fond of Bollywood music as well. And I mean, it's just been a fascination with me as with so many Indians. So, and of course, Amitabh Bachchan was the reigning star in the time that I came of age. So it was huge. I mean, he was huge, and the fan following was huge. The mania was huge. It was mass hysteria. And I remember so often going from school. My school used to get over at 4 p.m. And after that, I used to go and queue up to buy tickets in the various cinemas. And even though his films used to often be running in 20th week or 30th week or 40th week, there used to still be a 20-minute or 30-minute queues outside the ticket window. Even after 3, 4, 5 months of the film being on release. So it was a very different and it was a different era.
Yeah, and this was all on single screens, right?
Absolutely, only single screen.
Which
So
theaters did you
somehow,
frequent?
so I can actually remember which film I saw in which hall. Because whenever I think of the film, that atmosphere immediately comes back to mind. So I think what I remember, I think the first film of his I saw on screen was Anjeer. And I remember because I had have you seen Sanjeev? I'm sure you have. So you would remember that Amitabh has nightmares of a man on a horse. I actually had those nightmares because I was very young then.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I was maybe like 6 or something when the film came out, 5 or 6. And as usual, my parents took me to watch it. I mean, it was for Universal Exhibition, so my parents weren't doing anything wrong by taking me, but that scene had a sort of impact on me, and I remember getting nightmares, seeing that figure in my dreams. So that is my earliest memory of watching an Amitabh in the cinema. Then I saw many others like Majboor and Farar and everything that came out. Everything that came out. Diwar, of course, Sholay. So one memory of Sholay is that Mr. and Mrs. Yash Chopra and Mr. and Mrs. Deven Verma, these two couples had come together to watch Sholay, and they were sitting
Wow.
right behind me.
Okay.
And this was 18th August, the 6 p.m. show at Minerva Cinema in Bombay, where the film ran eventually for 5 years. I remember the date, and I remember going for the film with my parents, and I remember coming out absolutely stunned. I mean, I was 8 years old, but I mean, as you can imagine, Sholay was something else in 70 stereophonic sound, and that kind of canvas had never been seen before. And
Absolutely.
also, just specifically, like I told you, I wanted to speak about Coolie because you said
Please.
to
Yes.
restrict ourselves to one film. So
No,
Coolie
please
actually,
feel to speak as much as you want. So
no. So I thought I'll speak about Coolie specifically because Coolie was one of possibly one of his most awaited films because of what happened with him on the sets. So as it is, the anticipation was huge for the film. And then Manmohan Desai and Prayagraj gave that spectacular entry, which is arguably amongst the top three entries in Bollywood history.
Yes.
So that entry combined with the emotion for that film translated into something absolutely surreal in the cinema hall. So when Mr. Bachchan comes on screen in Coolie for the first time, I mean, I'm getting gooseflesh as I speak to you because I can recall what happened in the cinema hall on that day, and it was just something completely surreal.
And this is
People
83, right?
went
So it's almost
berserk.
30 years ago.
This is, yes, absolutely. And almost 40
Oh,
years ago.
40 years ago. Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. 38, whatever, 30,
Yes.
38 years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, it was completely wild. The cinema hall went wild, and it was a mix of not just joy, but a lot of emotion because of what that film meant to all the public at large and to us especially. So that is my, sort of everlasting memory of Coolie. And the moment he came on screen, I knew that I was going to be back seeing this film again in cinemas several times because I wanted to witness that again and again and again and again. Of course, I went again to see it, but it wasn't the same. The law of diminishing marginal returns. But I mean, that was something else. Coolie was something else. Yeah.
How many times
So
did you
I've
see
seen that.
Coolie?
I think maybe thrice in the cinema.
In the
Maybe
theaters,
I
yes.
can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, Sholay. I remember I've seen at least 7 or 8 times in the cinema. That's the film I've seen the maximum number of times.
Okay.
I've seen it in Delhi. I've seen it in Calcutta. I've seen it in Mumbai. Wherever I used to go, I used to watch Sholay.
And
But
the
it
first
was
time you watched Sholay, was that at the very beginning when the film was picking up speed, or was it by the time the film was
I like
practically a massive
so
success?
this was on the 18th of August 1975, which was day 4 of the release of the film. So I've read about this a lot, and Ramesh Sippy himself has confirmed that the film apparently wasn't doing well initially. But my impression is that there was never any slackening of speed at all. That is my impression. Because I remember there were massive hordes outside the theater right from day one. And of course, I was too young then to, understand audience reaction and box office collections and all that. So I'm sure what all these people are saying is true. But I remember that everybody was absolutely in awe of the film, absolutely awed when they came out of the cinema. My parents were in awe, I was in awe, we were all absolutely struck by the brilliance of the film.
And
And
let me ask you this: like, I'm pretty sure that your parents, being huge film buffs, they had watched, Mera Gaon Mera Desh before. And so, what was there? Because your reaction might be a little bit different, right? Because you might have seen like a Hindi Western, quote
no,
unquote, for
so
the first time.
true. So my dad absolutely fell in love with Sholay. It's his favorite film to date as well as it is mine. So I guess we loved it more than Mera Gaon Mera Desh, which he had seen. I know he had seen that.
Right.
But we never discussed Mera Gaon Mera Desh, so I don't know if he felt there were any similarities or. I mean, he clearly feels Sholay is a superior film for sure. I know about that.
Okay. And what was? Let me ask you this: what was your favorite moment and your dad's favorite moment? Because of the age gap, I'm guessing that it might be different.
Good question, but tough answer. I think I had too many favorite moments in the film. I used to keep waiting for so many, milestones in the film as the film went along. I used to wait for Asrani. I used to wait for Jagdeep. I used to wait for Ye Dosti. I used to wait for Gabbar's entry. I used to wait for Mehbooba. I used to wait for the scene at the end of Thakur's flashback, the interval point. I mean, there were things.
Many
Every few
moments.
minutes is a milestone in that. Every few minutes is a milestone in that film. and actually had the opportunity to meet me once and tell him, how much I love the film. So I'm very happy for that.
Oh, nice. Where was this? A private function, or this was at some
So this
public?
was, I bumped into him at a hotel in Delhi once,
Okay.
about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And incidentally, my son, who is also a huge Sholay fan, and he's 23 now, and he saw Sholay when he was maybe 12 or 13. And without my having influenced him about the film in any way whatsoever, he completely fell in love with it. So I like how the film has that cross-generational appeal.
Absolutely, yeah. It connects across generations. I mean, even
It's not like
today with
it's not like
kids.
I had, yeah, it's not like I had influenced him to watch it and built it up for him. He had no background. He had no background. He just knew it's a popular film. He saw it and he saw it again and he saw it again and he saw it again. And there was a re-release around that time in 2014 or 15. There was a re-release, the
Yes.
3D version. So I took him to see it in cinemas. And I am not particularly happy with that version, but that was the only way that I could show it to him in the cinema. But he just fell in love with it. And I was with my son when I met Ramesh Sippy. And I told him that, it's a testament to the cross-generational appeal of your film that my dad is in love with it, I am in love with it, and my son is in love with it.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
Yeah.
And any experience when you were disappointed with a Bachchan release in the cinemas? I mean, I'm sure like during maybe early 90s or late
So
80s.
there were, for example, Yarana was a big disappointment for me. Nastik was a big disappointment for me. So these kind of films, I think practically everything he did after Akhri was a disappointment for me, practically. So I consider the Bachchan era to be from Zanjeer to Akhri Rasta. That's what I feel. I feel, personally that post Akhri Rasta was just sort of going through the motion. He used to dial in his performances, and I don't think his heart was in it anymore.
You
At
didn't
least
like
that's
any
the
of
impression I.
Mukul Anand's films?
No, not at all, not at all.
Yeah.
And this is something that I find peculiar to my generation. I'm born in 1966. So a lot of the people born between, say, 65 to 70 don't like Mukul Anand's films. I don't know what it is. And people born between, say, or born post 75, they somehow love those films. And just to tell you, you probably know this already, but none of those films worked at the box office when they were released, barring Hum.
Hum, yes. That's true.
Hum was a box office success,
Right.
but Agnipath and Khuda Gawah both bombed.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very
So it
interesting
didn't appeal.
stat.
My generation was the target audience then. So it didn't appeal to my generation. And it still doesn't appeal to my generation. But subsequently, they've gained a cult following.
And why do you think that was? Was it because you saw a different Bachchan on screen, or was it that he had now aged, beyond that?
Yeah. My personal opinion is, like I said, I think he had become a caricature of himself by then. That's my personal opinion. He was just caricaturing what he had done in the past. He was acting like Amitabh Bachchan. I don't know if I'm able to express myself. If you see the intensity and spontaneity in his performance until Akhri Rasta, and then the film subsequent to Akhri Rasta, there's a huge difference. He's clearly pandering to the masses. He's aiming to please, or trying too hard to please. This is my personal opinion. And
Sure.
those early films, he's on the button. Every scene, although he was doing 12 films at a time and flying to all of India, shoot for them every day, he's right on the button, and it seems that he's only in that place, only one character. This is so I feel that level of intensity and performance is clearly missing from his later films.
And any memories whatsoever about the incident in Coolie and the sickness which followed afterwards?
Yes, of course. So we were all very, very distressed. And I remember the whole world, the whole country, of course, was praying for him. And every morning we used to get up very eagerly to read the papers because that was the only way we used to get news. That every day we used to open the papers dreading that there would be some bad news about the great man. And I remember
And so
Khudar
there
was
were
released
updates every day, every single day. There were updates in the newspaper.
every day. In Bombay newspapers for sure. I can only vouch for that. So I remember Khudar was released when he was in hospital, or when he was not particularly well. Khudar was another film I remember where there was a palpable sense of emotion in the audience in the cinema when that film came out and when Amitabh appeared on screen. Because at that time there was a feeling that perhaps this could be his last release. Perhaps the man might not survive this, and this could well be his last film. So that kind of emotion was attached to Khudar. Khudar is a very ordinary film, but because of the emotion attached to that film, having been released while he was in hospital, I think it did so well.
I see. Very interesting. Yeah. I talked to one other person, and he is 66 now, so he has very vivid memories of that. And he said the same thing, that a lot of people at that time thought that God forbid he's done, and they were
of course.
They were essentially praying and hoping for the best, but deep down they didn't think that he would make it. And he said that was like a very scary feeling for a lot of his generation. That
absolutely,
he was the only star icon they had, and they ran the risk of losing him. So it's crazy. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so for me to listen to all you have kind of recollect those memories, it's wonderful. I mean, it's just priceless for me because I love movies so much. So for me, this is really precious. Great. Anything else you would like to add, Sandeep?
No, I mean, nothing specific, but I remember Muqaddar Ka Sikandar. I saw it at Chanakya Cinema in Delhi.
Okay.
And I remember, so that entry is another spectacular entry when he comes on the bike singing.
Yes.
Rote hue aate hain sab.
Yes.
Again, remember huge roar, that kind of thing. And Amar Akbar Anthony, I must have seen 5 times in cinemas, I think. Diwar, I remember seeing it only once, though I suspect I might have seen it more than once, but I think I saw it only once in cinemas.
Okay.
And
do you still go and watch Bachchan films in the theaters?
I saw Badla in cinemas.
Okay.
Before that was what? I can't recall now.
I'm also trying to recollect. I think before Badla was not Teen, right?
I saw Piku in cinemas. I saw Piku in cinemas.
Okay.
So these two I remember offhand. I think I've seen most of them in cinemas.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
The tradition continues. Yes.
Continues. Yeah.
That's
though I have to confess, I'm not as big a fan anymore as I used to be.
Right. No, that makes a perfect sense. I mean, even for someone like me, who hasn't seen those films in cinemas, I would give my left hand to watch those films in theaters than any of his newer films. So that makes perfect sense. Thank you so much, Sandeep.
It's lovely to connect with you.
Here's Mohammad Tanveer.
See, I was a movie buff right from the beginning, right from childhood. My father used to take to the movies, mostly English movies, the Western movies, Clint Eastwood movies, Charles Bronson's. Most of that movies were, say, hero-oriented. But movies like, say, Coppola's Godfather or Martin Scorsese movies like Bean Street used to never come to India. In meantime, in the Bombay film industry, one guy came by name Amitabh Bachchan. He was different from all heroes. He was not a chocolate hero. He was not playing that silly college boy roles. He was something definite. He spoke very less. He played very mature roles right from the beginning of the career. If you see, before 1975, before his superstardom, some of the movies like, say, Gehri Chal, Raste Ka Patthar, another one, Parwana. If you see the 3 movies, Parwana is nothing but a world version of Dar, Yash Chopra's Dar. But if you see now, I don't know, you can get in YouTube, But once I saw, there was one clip and also a movie also, but now they have deleted their movie, but it was very good acting. See, after the superstardom, he was, we got corrupted. He fell into a image, and most of the directors were doing the same thing, utilizing the same, say, routine subjects and routine scenes. Even the mannerism also became very routine. Say after 84, 85. His last good film was 86, Akhir Rasta. Then in 1990, it was Maya Azad Ho. After that, he stagnated. The first film I recall is seeing him in Sholay, because we saw that movie in single theater, that to 70 mm. It was nothing but Sergio Leone's Good, Bad and Ugly, the Indian version. I'm not saying the close-ups, the gunshots, the slick editing, the fight, the slow motion. Probably the first time in the Indian history, film industry, such movie came. There is no, sister angle, there is no mother angle. It was a straightforward film. Two thugs going to a village, rescuing the village, and killing the hired by the Thakur to kill that dacoit. That's all. It was a straightforward movie. It was a brilliant movie.
And what do you recall about watching that in the theaters, Sholay? Do you have any specific memories? And you must be quite young back then. So,
yeah, I was maybe okay. At that time, there used to be it was so famous, that movie. Even we had a cassette. Audio cassette. Just like song cassette, there will be audio cassette. Not that square wala. Not that now we can get the CDs. Earlier there would be a square, small cassettes. There used to be 4 versions of that. Two version of only dialogues. The whole film dialogues. That was there, and we used to see one matinee from 3 to 6. I can go to 9 to 12. Take the ticket and go to same back to back to see that same movie. It was released in 1980. Again, we saw it, but it was reduced to 35 mm. And that was my first memory of his movies. Later on, I saw many movies like Kasme Wade, Mukhaddar Ka Sikandar, Shan, Shakti, Namak Halal. I was something fluctuating in 90s. I became Anil Kapoor fan. Again, I became Sanjay Dutt fan. Again, back to Bachchan. But in 90s, he was very hopeful. It's a very, his market went down in 90s.
Yes. He had a very bad phase then. Yeah.
Bad phase, and he was dropped from many movies, big movies.
Yes.
But he took with a pinch of salt, he moved on. That is the best thing. He never took anything seriously.
Yes.
But his second innings was most brilliant one. I must say the second innings was better than first innings. That I can say.
Any memories of Shan or Coolie or any of those films from 80s?
See, Shan, I was very young. I thought it was something like a Desi James Bond movie. And Coolie, because it was shot in my hometown, in my Bangalore. I watched that one shooting also. I was there. It was, I don't know, later on he met with accident, I don't know. I didn't know that news. Later on, I came to know after the release of the film. Later on, I saw his movies like Inkhala, Banda Khanum. Memories are many. But if you see his movies after 75, some were good, some rare gems, because the content was not very good. Because everything was mediocrity in 70s and 80s. You can't blame him. So he was stuck in, say, few directors who used to repeat him. That is the main, you can say, downfall him in 90s. Even Mukulandan had told him that they want a Bachchan type of format films. At that time, I saw every movie of his. I thought it was very good. Now I see, at the age of 55, only I read Amar Akbar Antoni and Nasib was very good. Rest were so so and so.
Naseeb is my favorite Manmohan Desai film, actually. Even before
Yeah,
Yaman, I really like that film.
but technically very good. Technically very good. Shot in a cinema scope,
Yes.
and the cinematography was very good also.
Yes. Any memories of Naseeb, Amar Akbar Anthony, or about booking the tickets, going to the theaters? What can you tell us about that?
No, the booking was done. There is no such booking was there, but we had to go earlier, see 6 hours back, or we had to go on night for tomorrow morning shows and sleep there only. We used to take all the bedsheet and the pillows. We used to sleep there, take the ticket for matinee show, not morning show, because the queue was so big. Half of the queue is to go to morning show. The second half we has to go for matinee. So that was this one. We used to enjoy because whatever most of the film we have seen is on theaters. Later on, that video came, that CD came. We have seen that also, but most of the movies are seen in the single theater screens.
And
But
how about Amitabh's entry, and what memories do you have about that in films?
yeah, we have got used to throw coins, whistles, everything. Because most of the audience used to say to see at least 3 or 4 5 times. They know when is the entry and all. They used to whistle, laugh, throw coins. Everything was there. But I think in those days, there were not very entrepreneur directors, very imaginative directors not there. I know Salim Javed wrote some great scripts, but today, because we have seen that era and this era, but this era was very brilliant. He chose very good movies.
Yeah, he did some of his best work with Ram Gopal Verma, I think. In the
Yeah.
Yes, and you're right. He got to work with different directors, who were trying to experiment a lot. And
Yeah.
even one of the characters that I really like is his character in Laksh.
Laksh, yes.
That was also a very nice character. He got to play a, army general for the first time, and he really fits that role because he has that
Yes.
personality and the voice. Of course, we all know that. But
Yeah.
Farhan Akhtar wrote that character nicely, where it's like an imposing person. So that was also very nice.
Yes.
And what else can you tell us about 70s and 80s? What was the whole experience of going to the movies like? Like, did you go with
And
family?
that
Did
time
you go with friends?
I used to go with my brothers and cousins. In those days, the ticket rate was 2 rupees 50 paise. 4 rupees 50 paise for balcony, and 1 rupee 30 paise for that third class, the front two rows. It was great fun because in those days there was one entertainment. Only we got two entertainments. One is circus and cinema. There is no option like this we have now. Now we got a lot of options here.
There was no
Not
TV,
even,
no internet, nothing. Yeah.
That was whether it is good or not, it is to go. It was very good movies, and people used to see each and every movie. And most of the movies, these flop movies, used to run at least 15 weeks. That is later on used to say that 100 days, 50 days, the movies to run. But what I'm telling is, in those days, there was some 75 weeks movie has to go, 100 weeks has to go, Platinum Jubilee, Diamond Jubilee. That also was there. But overall, I think he was something different from the other heroes. And the only other hero I used to like is Dharmendra and Rishi Kapoor. And Dharmendra was a natural one. He was like a Greek god. And Chintu Saab was like a very natural, I think very natural actor. And Bachchan was there, clean shaven, height, with good height, personality, with good voice. Later on, they even misuse his voice also. Now he say, if he speaks very normal, it will be very good. He speaks with something, what is a pushover, like push. He used to push the voice, like very loud voice.
And do you have any memories about when the Coolie accident happened, and then a lot of people were worried because he was in the hospital for a long time?
Even though it was happened near my home, really something around 7-8 kilometers from my home, there is one university. In that one university, they have converted into some election office where the shoot was there. The scene was that election office where they come and fight both that Punis sir and Amitabh Bachchan. I came to know later on after the movie was released.
You said you used to go to the barber shop just to look at the Screen magazine. Tell us about that.
Yeah, those days was very good because we used to go to barber shop to see screen. One was the barber shop, another was a library. You have seen the screen paper, the newspaper. It come like a newspaper. Just like a regular
I
newspaper.
know about the Screen magazine. I don't think I've seen the Screen newspaper. No.
Screen magazine, yeah. Screen newspaper was just like a regular newspaper. We used to read now whatever the getting the newspaper. It was like that only. They used to mention the release of the film, the forthcoming films, the muhurat of the film, launching of the film. It was very good. At least it had some 7 to 8 pages, but it was very good. In those, you used to go there every Friday to come. That screen paper, we used to go to library or the barber shop to see what's happening. That is the only connection we had with the industry, so that we can know the latest news of the stars.
Have you saved any of the tickets of Bachchan's films?
No, that I don't. I didn't do that.
On the internet, a few years ago, I saw somebody had saved their Diwar ticket stub and even Agnipath. And I said, "Wow, this is really worth a lot now." I mean, this is how many people who saw Diwar and how many people who saw Agnipath might have that. So it's that was awesome.
I can say that what Hollywood had Marlon Brando, Bollywood had got Amitabh Bachchan. That is for sure. Even you say after say Millennium movies, like say Nishab was nothing but India's answer to Last Tango to Paris. And some of Sarkar was nothing but The Godfather.
Great, Tanveer. Would you like to add anything else? This was great. I really enjoy listening to people, talk about Bachchan from those years. Anything else that you would like to add?
I think he once said no to Mani Ratnam. That is very sad thing.
Yes,
He was after Balapati.
Yes.
Later on, Momati played that role.
Yes.
He said no to that one. I don't know why he did that one. And also, we know Chopra. He used to hate him.
Yes.
He told Bachchan in one interview that he is doing always Manmadasa movies. There is no logic and no story. And he used to hate him very much. I don't know how did he work with him. Later on, they both worked in a movie called Eklavya.
Eklavya, yes. It's a good film. Hey, good. This was good talking with you, and really appreciate you sharing all your memories.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tanveer. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May God bless you.
And finally, here's Sandeep Padhi.
Yeah, so speaking of Bachchan, and so I come from a small town in Odisha, which is called Jaipur. Not the Jaipur in Rajasthan, but there is a small town in Odisha called Jaipur. And like most things that come late to small town, like malls and your multiplexes and other things, the Khans also came late. So for us, at least when I was growing up, that is in the early 90s, till about 94, 95, right? The star that we knew was Amitabh. Right. All his movies from 70s and 80s, they kept getting re-released multiple times, 2 full houses, because the newer movies were not generally released on time, right? And there was still a craze for Bachchan. That's how someone like me and people from my generation who have not seen him in his peak, so to say, 70s, 80s, but in a way we did. Because the movies that we used to go out with family or whatever, right? But since I can remember as far back as I think when I was 6 or 7, and the only memories that I have in cinemas or of the big screen is watching Bachchan, and that's where the movie bug bit me.
Right.
So the things that others from would hear and say that there used to be a time when Amitabh's entry was celebrated on the big screen. I mean, in cinema halls. I have seen that upfront, and by that time, Amitabh, I think, had sabbatical and all of that from his movies. He took a brief sabbatical and all in the early 90s, but he was at his peak. And your Hera Pheri and Kalia, Sholay, Shan, Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, all of these movies, I have seen it on the big screen in re-release, and it used to be a powerhouse. And the moment he entered on screen, there would be those whistles, and I think that was there everywhere in India at one point of time. Coins in the air at his entry and all of that. In South, they still do for the superstars. They throw notes and
Right, yes.
all. But I think it started with Bachchan.
Yes.
In a kind of way in India, it started with Bachchan in the 70s. So, and when we were going to the theaters, that is how it was. And that is, I think, why we do movies in the first place, because it was a celebration if you go and watch it. And for a kid who's growing up, all your boxes on the checklist are ticked. There's a hero entry scene, there's a fight, and there are a lot of fights, and all of that, right? So it was interesting. And although we went for other movies, I think the Bachchan movies that I saw during that period between 91, 92 till, let's say, 97, 98, even before the other movies started playing more often, those are some of the best memories. And mostly because I think it was action and it was larger than life. Bachchan meant big screen.
Right.
That was primarily what it was.
Right. And what was the atmosphere like? I mean, I understand these are reruns, so people are probably, watching them for the nth time. But for someone like you who was watching it for the first time, what was it like?
It was actually something magical, because obviously I grew up in a household that loves movies. Movies used to play all the time. You would get your VHS and all of that and play movies. Right from hardcore commercial to your art house, everything was fair game. So we used to watch anything and everything, and we used to like it also. I mean, for all kinds. But then this was a completely different experience when you go on a weekend and watch it. And like me, there were a lot of first timers as well. I mean, youngsters of that time were slightly younger than us, maybe college going students and all. That was their only form of entertainment at that stage. There was not much to do also, I guess. So it used to be a proper celebration where they used to go. You would have all your queues for the ticket. Movie will not play for a long time, like it might have been playing in the older days, right? It would be there for a week or maybe 4 or 5 days, something like that. So it used to be packed. Mostly it used to be played in what was called the first show and second show, which is odd naming, because typically the first show is the morning show, but then this is maybe from an older days it had stayed where there used to be 2 shows, the evening show and then there's a night show. So both of those shows, especially the night show, used to be packed. Unfortunately, the theaters were not very well maintained. So this was a time when, and in Odisha, we don't have that tradition like how these in South India, where I've seen that people flock theaters, families, right? Families in 90s had more or less stopped going to the theaters. So it was mostly a young crowd, and it was a predominantly male crowd. Right. I could almost say to the extent of 90-95% male crowd. So while the memories are very good, and there's a lot of noise in my head when I take that period, to the point that, for example, if you say in Kalia, when he says that line, "Jahan hum khade hote hain, line wahi se shuru hoti hai," you will not hear the entire line. Because the moment he says "Jahan hum khade hote hain," the whistles have started. Yeah. But unfortunately, because the theaters were not that well maintained and kept, because family audience had stopped going till a point when this Hemap Khan and all of that came at a later stage, the memory of the smell is more of, your smoke and unkempt toilets. And then if you go to a theater and you come back, right? Your family members will know that you've gone to a theater. You can't lie. So I remember that distinctly, because once I was maybe in my 6th or 7th standard, I started going out for these movies with my friends. Maybe sometimes without informing at home. But when you come back, they invariably know that you've gone to the theater. It was like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
it was
any
a
specific
complete
memories from
sensory
Hera
experience.
Fari or Kalia about the scenes or songs?
Kalia, actually, a lot of memories are there from Kalia, because so I'll tell you why those memories are more important. This is, I think, probably in my second or third standard I would have been, and when I went to watch Kalia. And from the other movies that I had watched till then, there were a few differences. One is because I was starting to understand movies maybe a little better at that time. So why Kalia was different from the other movies was that, I noticed, first of all, the trademark introduction, whistles and all that happened, right? When Amitabh comes on screen. That didn't happen initially in Kalia. It happens at
I
the
see.
20th or 25th minute.
Right, right, right.
Because although when the credit is displayed, I think it is displayed over Amitabh's, the frame is frozen on Amitabh and the credit is displayed, but he is still Kallu. That is where I noticed a distinct change, because the crowd was watching it like a normal movie till everything, and then after his first jail stint, when he comes out and you have that Kalia Kalia sound
Background
playing in the
music, yeah.
background, once then that is when the crowd started screaming. So is one, at that time it did not register entirely in my mind, but I felt that there is something different. Muqaddar Ka Sikandar, maybe when you see when Amitabh comes, that's his introduction scene when he comes on the bike, and that's like a cue for the fans to go berserk. But this was, Amitabh is there on Scouts, he's practically there throughout the first 15 minutes, but then that's not the Amitabh they've come to see. That Amitabh that they've come to see comes after the first jail stint. So that is one distinct memory. The other thing that was different from all these movies, and which I still remember, although I haven't watched that movie in a long time and I don't remember the exact dialogue, but when the judge announces his sentence and he sentences him for whatever period of time, the lawyer starts speaking, and then it cuts to his voice playing in the background, and he enters the jail and he says something on the lines of, if you send him to the jail, there will be professors of crime who will train him in their skills, and ये जब तक बाहर आएगा तब तक उन सब चीजों में माहिर हो गया होगा, or something like that. That was a little different. Again, something I didn't register at that age, but then now for the movies of that period, it was different. It was a different uh, way of employing the tool of the voiceover, I guess,
Yes,
where
yes.
he actually says a lot about what happens when you send a criminal into jail. You would have seen many web series. We have seen Orange is the New Black or Criminal Justice, whatever. Complete tragic, the character arc of a person once he goes inside the jail and what he goes through, right? They did that within a minute for whatever reasons, but then it's clearly communicated that what he's going to be, what jail does to a person or could do to a person. And then we used to use a lot of these dialogues in school. That's why Kaila is memorable. And in our adolescent mind, Amitabh Bachchan's, once you come out of watching it. So
Right.
when this, I think another line that I remember is when Pran enters, he explains what he preempts what Pran is going to do. He says, "Abhi wo matches ki tili jalayega," or something like that, right? I remember that very distinctly because to show off after watching that movie, used to go to, the moment the teacher enters, we would all be Bachchans in our head, saying to some new kid in the class, saying, now he'll come, he'll walk to the blackboard, he's going to write it like this, he's going to throw the chalk at the guy making noise and all. And we were Bachchan for those 2.5 minutes.
Right.
So and one of the things that used to give a high was rebellion, right? In whatever small form we do in school. So when he puts he puts his factory and he lights his factory on fire, and then when the police come to catch him, when actually catch him, he says something like, ये आग मेरी तरफ से तुम्हारे खिलाफ जंग का ऐलान है. So whenever the teacher used to find us talking to each other or something like that and punish us, right, to say stand up on the bench or something like that, in our adolescent heads we were like, yeah, ye tumhari taraf, meri taraf se कहलाना है, something like that. So it was a complete package in a way for a long time, because I remember for a year or so after we watched that movie, almost every second kid in our class, because we went in a group accompanied by some seniors, of course. But after we came back for that complete year, this was our go-to line, and we were all Kalias in our head, rebelling against the teachers and all that.
And some great stories, Sandeep. Those are some great stories.
So,
And
so
Kali is a
that,
very different film. Like you said, it's an intelligent film. It's obviously written by Tinu Anand. And so, it does some things very differently than some of the Bachchan films. So, but that's a different conversation. But how about Hera Fairy? Hera Fairy is also, again, I mean, some parts of Hera Fairy are like classic. I mean, but it's like I remember the scene in the gambling den, which I really like, where Bachchan goes, it's
yeah,
the opening scene. Man, that scene is a killer, and Bachchan just looks like $1 million, and he really seems like a high roller.
yeah.
And yeah, what are your memories of that picture?
And so you mentioned his looks. He looks dapper and suave in that movie, in that suit and all of that. And before Pierce Brosnan and Sean Connery and all of that had entered our consciousness, right? It was this.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
this is what was the epitome of suave for us at that time, because we hadn't seen pretty much anything outside of Bollywood. But then when it comes to this and Bachchan walking in like that, and in most of his earlier movies, he used to play a normal middle class guy or a ruffian, or an outlaw or something like that. But in Hera Peri also, yes, he is an outlaw in a way, but then he's dressed to kill, and especially that gambling scene. And one more thing that I still remember about Hera Peri, for some reason it has stuck with me, is the role played by Pinchu Kapoor. Because as I said, growing up in a household where movies were discussed almost all the time, right? You just don't knowing the Amitabhs and Dharmens and whatnot. You also end up knowing the Pinchu Kapoors and the Satyan Kapoors and K.N. Singh and Dev Kumar, names like these. And whenever I used to watch a movie with my friends, and I still do it a lot, I would say that, yeah, that guy in the background, yeah, that's Satyan Kapoor. He has played something in that. And Pinchu Kapoor was one of those guys, because we in the on the big screen, as well as in the Friday and Saturday movies, Pinchu Kapoor used to come. I mean, many of his movies he had small parts, but here he actually had a proper antagonist role written for him. I think probably this is the only movie, because I don't remember watching him in any movie on cigar smoking dad who tells his daughter not to cross a line, or something like that. And he has played minor supporting roles, but this is a movie where he gets to play everything. He gets to even masquerade as another guy, and he's a proper antagonist. And Asrani, my favorite memory of Hera Peri is Asrani, the way he gets outsmarted by Bachchan
Yes.
in the casino scene at the start, and when in the end he goes, and I think the movie ends with him fainting on the ground after seeing Bachchan's cards again. And I hated Vinod Khanna for a long time. Yeah, because after of course he was playing it and playing to get at something and all of that, but I hated him for a long time. And every punch that landed on Bachchan, it felt like almost as if it was falling on. So now when people say that they you would obviously be aware of this Talapati and Rajini Kamal and all of these
Sure.
fights that happen, all discussions happen. A lot of my peers also, we brush it off sometimes, saying, what, why so much of emotional attachment towards a star? It should be towards cinema and all. But I do not have that objectivity towards Bachchan. I think till now, I am in my 30s. I don't think I have that objectivity towards him. He has become that sort of a big screen idol or whatever, and I admire his acting a lot in the later movies that he has done, but
Sure.
for me, Bachchan always remains, the Bachchan of Hera Pheri or
Yes.
Suhag or all of these movies, which I might not be able to watch the entire movie now.
Right.
If given a chance from end to end, I will press the skip button once in a while to skip certain parts. But yeah, the parts that have stayed have stayed.
Yes. Yes.
Something like that. And hence I hated, shortly after watching Kali, I ended up watching Mukaddar Ka Sikandar.
Oh,
So that
yes.
hatred
Another
even
of my favorite. Yeah.
increased.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
completely
totally. I mean,
different. Yeah.
you said it. I mean, yeah, with every passing year, he has got to do so many different kind of roles and such mature kind of entertainment. But the Bachchan magic still remains that from the 70s and the 80s, which were over the top. And those
Correct.
are the films that we do watch when we want to get the Bachchan fix. And, it's not, I mean, for example, I'll give you an example. Like, I love Sarkar and Nisha.
Sorry.
But when I want a Bachchan fix, I'm going to go back to Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, or I'm going to go back to Kalia, because those are the films which have the repeat value, so to speak. And Nishabd and Sarkar and those later films, they're great too. I mean, they also have repeat values, but the Bachchan magic still lies in the films of the yore. So it's like you said, it's different. I mean, you equate the Bachchan stardom, you equate the Bachchan aura with those particular films, which came in the 70s and the 80s.
Correct. And I'm glad you mentioned Nisha because not many do. And he has given one of his finest performances in that movie. But
Absolutely, yeah. That's an extremely criminally underrated movie. I mean, it's a great movie, and I think it's one of Ramu's best films, in my opinion. And it's probably one of Bachchan's better performances, along with Khaki, which I love too. So I think Khaki and Nishabd are just two of my favorite of his later films.
a couple of days back, I was watching Khaki for the umpteenth time for some reason. I like that performance because
Khaki is a great film.
Khaki also in a way reminds you of the 70s.
Yes.
I mean, if Vijay from Janjeer would
yes, absolutely.
have grown older,
it is a reboot
it would
of
have
that
been the
character.
same.
Totally, yes. I always wanted to ask this to Sridhar Raghavan, who wrote the film. That it is totally that. I mean, it is essentially Vijay Khanna's reboot. I mean, it's if Vijay Khanna would have been still in the force, in 20, 30 years, where would he have landed up? And he would have been probably Bachchan of Khaki. So it's a very interesting kind of a character arc that Sridhar has done.
And the writer that Sridhar Raghavan is, it probably is.
Absolutely. I mean, both those brothers are huge fans of Bachchan, and so I'm very sure that that was in his mind. Although I don't know for certainty. I mean, if it was, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like you said.
Yeah, it could be. And I mentioned Nishabd because I watched it in my mind. It kept going. Yeah, what a performance! What an excellent role he has done. He has underplayed it, in fact, and conveyed everything that is there to convey and all of that. But I came back after watching Nishabd, and that night I have watched Mukaddar Ka Sikandar again. Because I didn't want to go to bed with that image.
Right. So Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is your go-to movie, huh? That's your go-to Bachchan film.
I feel that is a movie that has aged better than the other movies. Yeah. Because Kalia, I don't think I can watch end to end now, except for few parts. But Mukaddar Ka Sikandar, I think I can watch.
And great songs. Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is just
very fun. Great songs.
Yeah.
But do you feel the same, that it has aged better than?
I have always looked at Mukaddar Ka Sikandar essentially as it's a riff on Devdas. And
yes.
So that Sikandar is essentially the most functional Devdas, the most relatable Devdas. That he's not going to drown himself in booze. He's going to. He backs himself. He is huge on confidence. It's very extremely different from what classical Devdas is. So I like that part of Mukaddar Ka Sikandar. And I'm a huge Prakash Mehra fan, and I think Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is probably Prakash Mehra's best film. So it also has all those Prakash Mehra signatures in it. It's extremely high on emotional intensity. That same emotional intensity is there in the action scenes, between Amjad Khan and Bachchan.
Yes. Yeah,
So all that
correct.
it packs a lot of emotional punch, and on different levels. In terms of melodrama, in terms of action, in terms of the pacing of the film. So it's a great film. I think Mukaddar Ka Sikandar has definitely aged well. It's a great soundtrack too, and
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
think again that is one
glad
of
that you
Bachchan's
Devdas.
underrated. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you ask me, I mean that's probably Hindi cinema's best Devdas, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
but,
Yeah.
I wrote a piece on Kader Khan some time back for film gets published, and I'd mentioned there that Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is a likable Devdas because unlike Devdas, he's not an arse, for lack of a better word,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
that's
Because he's functional, he fights for what he wants. He doesn't give up. He's not essentially resigning to his fate. And so that's what is likable about him. And I think it's a very, again, underrated performance by Bachchan, because in those days, I don't think that movie is still remembered as a performance. It's more for the emotional connect, I think, I mean, people remember O Saathi Re and all that, but people never talk about Bachchan's performance. When he goes and tells Zora that he knows that he's not probably never going to have her. So it's a great scene, and there are a lot of magic moments in that film. Again,
I think
also
it's not talked about enough because of there's a certain kind of this snobbery, right, associated around commercial cinema. That a powerful performance cannot be in a commercial space. It can be. Mukaddar Ka Sikandar has some of his finest acting. And I think
absolutely,
you're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about
We
the
have these,
Zora
rigid
scene.
kind of, all these guidelines and rigid kind of matrices that we have made for ourselves. And like you said, commercial cinema is not going to have a subtle performance. It's not going to have a performance to rave about, and that's absolutely wrong. I mean, we need to start revisiting some of the classics and some of the modern classics with a fresh mind. And
Yeah,
Mukaddar Ka Sikandar would be one of the first films, to do that.
yeah, because Amitabh from Mukaddar Ka Sikandar is not the Amitabh from Suhag
Absolutely not. Yeah, yeah.
or
And
any
or
Manmohan Desai movie, if you
yeah,
say.
or Sandeep. He's certainly not the Bachchan of Zanjeer. I mean, because if you look at Prakash Mehra and Bachchan, that is the first film that
Yeah,
they did, right?
correct.
So the Bachchan's Sikandar is so different from Bachchan's Vijay Khanna, So it's totally diametrically opposite characters, and same directors, same signatures, same actor, but just massively different kind of a treatment, massively different kind of a performance.
That was before Jadugar, Tufan, and all.
Yeah, those films. I mean, they're like Jadugar, and Tufan has its appeal. I think Jadugar was, nothing to write home about. But I mean, when I watched them, like I was a kid, and that time again, like I watched these on VHS. So you always have those fond memories of those films too. But
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
those films you're not going to speak of in the same breath. Not at least Tufan or Jadugar. But I mean, if you look at Mukul Anand's films like Hum, Khuda Gawa, and all those Agnipat, those are again. I mean, I have totally reverence for those films. So
The
those,
Hum, if you look at it, has started a genre. It has started a
yes,
legitimate genre
yes,
that is being used till date.
yes, and there are
There is
so
a
many remakes in the South based off Hum.
hundreds. And
Yes, yes.
last Friday, there's a movie called Robert released here in Bangalore, which stars one of the biggest stars in Karnataka, Darshan,
Uh-huh.
and it's a rehash of Hum.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
It's, so because Hum then became Basha and
Right.
Indra and so many others, it's the same genre.
Right.
It has created a different genre in itself.
Yes.
That
Yes.
movie.
Yes. Yes.
I
That's
think that is
another
also not
movie Hum that
appreciated
you can
as
keep
much.
on going back to. I mean, Hum has such tremendous repeat value, and again, great soundtrack. So it's another film that you can keep going back to.
Definitely.
Great. Great. Hey, this was great, Sandeep. I really appreciate you sharing your memories here, and it's very different because you watched these in '90s. So I'm really glad that you put your hand up because that's a very different kind of experience than somebody watching it in the '70s and '80s. But it tells you
Yeah.
that Bachchan magic has kind of sustained itself over all decades. It doesn't matter when you
It,
watch
it,
it. And again, he's like one of those stars, that connects across generations. So, no matter today, a 10-year-old, he will be able to, relate to and enjoy Bachchan films just as, we did or we do at this age. So again, that's a sign of a great star. I mean, all great stars have that kind of an appeal, cross-generational appeal. But this was great because somebody watching those films in 90s and still going through that same kind of a magical experience is something else.
I think that's the magic of cinema and Bachchan.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Himanshu.
If you liked the episode, do spread the word about this episode and the podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your pods. Also, do drop us a review in Apple Podcasts when you get a chance. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Love of Cinema SF8 for podcast-related updates and my tweets on all things movies. That's the episode. This is Himanshu signing off. And like always, thank you for listening to the Love of Cinema podcast.